Hi, welcome back. Thanks for watching MindSense. Let's cut the nonsense. Let's talk MindSense. I'm your host, Meena J.
अब मन की बातें तो होती रहेंगी. Keep watching MindSense. I'm your host, Sarita Chand.
And in the studio with us joining today is Manish Kumar. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
Thank
great
you,
being back.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Manish.
Yes.
Actually, first time you're on MindSense.
MindSense, yeah, I was on the other show.
We've had you before, but MindSense first.
Very MindSense.
So looking good, looking good.
Thank you so much.
So first, I'd like you to start off with a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you went into nursing.
Yeah, so I was actually, the audience might hate me after this, but I was born in the States. I'm
wow.
American by birth,
Sure,
but I grew up in Vancouver. I'm American by birth, but I grew up in Vancouver, and I'm a son to first generation immigrant parents.
Okay.
My parents moved from India a while back, and we moved to the States. I was born there, and then I grew up in Vancouver. And I went to school in Vancouver, and I went to nursing.
How old were you when you
3.
moved here?
Oh,
Okay,
I was
so
3. So I was
pretty
super young. Yeah, I was super young. And then I went to school here, and I became a nurse in 2014. So I went to Kwantlen. I did mental health nursing, psychiatric nursing, and I've been a registered psychiatric nurse since. I've completed my master's degree as of last year, so I have my master's of science in nursing, and I currently work in public health in Vancouver.
So, Manish, why did you go into nursing, psych nursing? Like, what was the reason behind your career choice?
Honestly, Sarita, if I'm being very honest with you, it's family experience, and I think I was inspired at a very young age. With health challenges that I've seen my parents go through, my family go through, and how our family was touched by all these amazing healthcare professionals. And I think growing up around that environment, in the hospital environment growing up, it inspired me to be like these individuals. And I think that was one of the leading factors of me going into nursing. And honestly, I've never looked back since, and I don't regret my decision, and I love what I do. And especially mental health nursing, I think I've always been really passionate about it. And here we are today.
Yes, here we are.
Talk a little bit about your childhood. You were like so full of energy, so enthusiastic. It's like it took us a second to get from 3 years old to now you are nursing, then your master's. Let's go back to about your childhood, growing up, going to school here, your experiences, like, if you share about that.
Honestly, if I gotta say, I had a wonderful childhood. I have amazing parents who have worked their tail off to bring us where we are today, and I am who I am is because of them.
Siblings? Do you have
I
siblings?
have a sister. Yeah, she's a nurse too.
Okay.
So she's a nurse as well, and she works in long-term care, and I work in mental health. But yeah, growing up, I had a fantastic childhood. I grew up in Surrey, went to elementary school in Surrey, went to high school in Surrey, went to school in Langley. And I was very involved in academics. I was really into academics, not so much in sports. But academics was huge, and that's me.
So no experience with what we see today with a lot of gang life, violence, any of that stuff.
Growing up in Surrey school districts, I was exposed to it, definitely seeing it. But again, I got to commend my parents and the amazing educators I had around me to keep us away from those things. But definitely growing up around it was very visible in our schools, and so I think that could also be a leading factor as to why I am so passionate about mental health and substance use today, is so that seeing that not first-hand experience, but seeing it vicariously through my environment. So and I think in high schools when I was growing up, the awareness wasn't there for mental health. It was definitely not there, and I think the school districts are doing a really good job of bringing that up now. But when I was in high school, we didn't even talk about mental health, right? We did talk about drinking and driving and gang violence, but mental health was never spoken about.
I think, as we're moving on forward, more awareness is being created.
Absolutely.
And especially in South Asian communities, more awareness and acceptance about talking about this and, that it is an illness. So for you, how old were you when you decided that? Because, you wanted to be in that field, but there's a whole different, so many professions. So when did you decide, no, I want to be a nurse?
It was in high school, actually. I remember sitting in a career counseling class, and then my career counselor going through the options with me, and then she said, I was like, I really want to do something in the healthcare field. Again, talking about how I was inspired growing up. And so she sort of veered me into the direction of nursing, and I started looking into it. And I actually started talking to nurses in my personal life as well, and asked them what their life is like, what their role is like. And I think I just kind of fell in love with it. And I started applying, and I got really lucky, and I actually got into nursing right out of high school, which is
so that was good.
so that was a rare occurrence now, but I got into out of high school, and I actually was going into the RN program, but then I heard about Kwantlen's RPN program, and I was like, mental health, that is what I want to be doing. And so it aligned with my values and beliefs, and I enrolled into school, and 4 years later I was a nurse, and and I've, like I said, I don't regret that decision, being a mental health nurse.
And so how was that in like, were your parents supportive? Because when we look at nursing, sometimes, especially parents or like older generation, especially in our community, nurse, that's a woman's job, or why do you want to do that job? It's like this title of being a nurse where you're cleaning up after people, right? Whereas we know there's so many different jobs, so many different things that you do. So how was that perceived in your friend circle, your parents?
Again, again, the more I speak about my parents, the less it is. Like, they were absolutely supportive and they loved it. But when it comes to, in general, society, again, I did face that stigma, is that this is a men's job. This is a women's job. Bandiya na kaam nahi hega. Am I just wiping butts for a living, right? Is that's what I will be doing. But I also even got the stigma when I told them the specific field that I was going into with mental health nursing is, acha tu pagla na kaam karna, or you're going to be working with crazy people. And that was the bigger stereotype that I faced when I especially told them I'm in mental health. And actually sometimes even I got stigma from nurses as well, is that that's not real nursing. And I was like, really? That's what I've even heard of some nurses say. But the stigma was, I think, mostly around the fact that I was working with crazy people. And then so a lot of my years I've spent advocating for mental health is that this is not what my field of nursing is. The power of an RPN is amazing, and then what an RPN can do is unreal, right? So, and especially as a nurse. So a lot of my professional career is advocating for the nursing practice, and especially for the practice of the registered psychiatric nurse.
No, it's great. I think both genders should be going into these professions and being so confident like you. So what was your jawab? Like, when people, the stigma they were giving you, why nurse, say, hey, buriya da kamma, why do you want to do that? Or mental health crazy people. What was your response? How did you, obviously you were confident enough to give responses and still continue on your goal? Yeah,
for me it was I think, acknowledging the fact that these stereotypes come from a lack of education, right? And so part of my role was to educate those individuals on what mental health is, right? Which people don't realize that, with mental health, we treat individuals with evidence-based practice. There's actual research behind the therapies we provide. There's actual medicine. Medication for individuals with mental health is almost as effective, with cancer treatment. We use pharmaceutical medication. We use research-based things. And so I think I'm not going to say that like the change is there 100%, but we're getting there slowly. And so I think for me, it's just continuing the education with everyone I meet, and removing the stereotypes and acknowledging the fact that, I'm not going to blame these individuals for their preconceived notions, but just coming from a place of understanding that this is a lack of education on their part. So how I sort of face those types of things is just providing that individual with the education that I can, and it's up to that individual to take it or leave it, right? So that's how I work with individuals.
I'm very proud to hear, the steps that you took to I guess to educate people around you, to decrease the stigma, because I think when you look at mental health touches everybody. It doesn't matter what social economics, gender, 100%. Race, doesn't matter. So it's good that, I think it's so important to have male representation of mental health, practices in our society, so
Absolutely.
that maybe there's male clients who will probably be a little bit more comfortable discussing their emotions and feelings, and what are they facing with the male, and also different ethnic background. People have maybe this language barrier, so having people from all different backgrounds to be able to speak the language really helps people identify the challenges.
Yeah, and like you said, that's a great point, is the diversity in nursing, right? Especially as a male, as a South Asian. So I think that's so vital to bring in that perspective into that, because when we're looking at South Asian mental health, being very frank and being very candid with you too, it's not spoken about. It's a taboo subject. We don't speak about it. For a lot of individuals or families, it's what will society think? It's a shameful topic, right? And like you mentioned, like mental health touches everybody, regardless of their cultural background, their socioeconomical status, so I think that's coming from a lens of education and understanding. I think that's where the change needs to come, especially with our South Asian community. So a lot of it's based on the taboo of it, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the South Asian mental health, with the with all that sort of stuff, because again, it's a lack of education. It comes down to that.
And you said a very profound statement when somebody asks you, "Pagala nal kaam karte ho." I don't speak Punjabi, but it's like you're going to work with people who are
crazy.
Pagal, and pagal is like, when you think about it, when you don't have the understanding, is like जो लोग पागल है वो जिंदगी भर ऐसे ही रहेंगे.
Exactly.
उनको ये नहीं पता होता कि there is so many, like you mentioned, there is interventions, medication, treatment, therapy, and so many aspects, and people can live fulfilled lives, maintain successful careers, and and you know what, हर इंसान चाहे उसके पास diagnosis हो या ना हो, we all get touched. There's no, like, I don't know anybody who can say that, oh yeah, I have had feelings where I felt sad for like a week or something. We all, especially when we talk about grief.
Exactly.
There hasn't been a single person who hasn't been touched by grief. So
Absolutely.
Grief always, leads to so many emotions and feelings that we either try to suppress or deal with. But acknowledging or accepting that I'm touched by mental health, as we were deflecting, so it brings such a good point.
And even like if I think like just because I'm an RPN or a mental health nurse doesn't mean that my mental health is perfect at all either, right?
Exactly.
There's work that I need to do as well. Like you said, there's grief in our families, there's other stressors in our family, and you never know when you're walking by someone in a mall or what walk of life they're walking on currently, what their life is like currently. So I think all I ask is when I talk to people is just come from a place of non-judgment, right? Because like I said, you don't know what that person is going through, and I've worked with my clients, my patients who are very affluent members of society, and mental health touches them, right? Just someone of lower socioeconomical status doesn't mean that they're the only ones that are prone to mental health. I've seen individuals of very different walks of life have mental health. So coming from a place of non-judgment and understanding, and I think self-reflection is huge, is acknowledging that, there's an area that I don't know about, which is mental health, and I need to educate myself on that. And so that's the perspective I take, is that this individual may not know what mental health is, and it is my role and my duty as a nurse, as an individual who advocates for mental health, is to provide that advocation, to provide that education.
Yeah. So 2014 you enrolled?
Yes.
And then when did you finished 4 years later?
I enrolled in 2011 and finished in 2014.
Finished in 2014, okay.
Yes.
So 2014 and now we're at 2022. So
Yes.
almost a decade, right? So when you first started working, talk about that experience versus like how you've seen the change.
Yeah, you know what? Sorry, before you answer that, I was thinking about the same thing. Getting out of high school, 17, 18, going to nursing, you are barely 20. You're so young, and how did people accept you? Like, those are the things.
Or even listen to you.
You
First you're a man, then you're a nurse,
then I'm a kid.
Right?
No, but even I remember, like, if I'm going to be honest with you, I remember in semester 3, the first clinical placement I had, I walked onto an acute inpatient mental health unit, and I was like, what? Is this what reality? And I, being very honest, lived a very protected and sheltered life, and my parents provided me with the best, and I was not exposed to any of this, right? So that was my first exposure, but, over having such amazing educators, in my program and showing me different perspectives and showing me what the reality of mental health nursing is, I think opened my eyes for sure. And so I think my education was really influenced by inspirable educators. And like you said, I'm 21, walking on as a full scope nurse with individuals who are double my age, triple my age, are probably 20, 30 years into nursing, and here's a 21-year-old coming onto a high acute inpatient setting. And I think that was a challenge on its own. You know, I think, you know, Meena, you might know this, as nurses eat their young. And so sometimes the nurses are not the kindest to their own kind, right?
No.
And again, I'm not speaking on everyone's behalf, but my experience, that is the case. But I think slowly, you know, being very open, being very reflective on your own practice, on your own education was really big. But no, I did have to go through those hoops personally for myself as well, working with individuals of, you know, that are older than I am, and I think what was my greatest success in that was using those individuals as mentors, and working with them and seeing them through the eyes of a mentorship. And they are the ones that are the seasoned nurses. They are the professionals. I'm entry level. I'm coming into the nursing practice fresh. I'm green. And so I think using their experiences and their knowledge base and their expertise really shaped my nursing practice. So again, not only the educators were inspiring too, but the nurses that I worked with and the healthcare professionals I continue to work for are absolutely unreal. And I'm learning something new, even though I'm almost, 8-9 years into my nursing practice. There's never a day where I'm not challenged and I'm not questioned and I'm not looking up something. So I will never consider myself a proficient nurse. There's always something I need to learn.
You never. I just want to share something, a funny story. So I did mental health studies as an adult.
Wow.
And I think that my mentors believed in me and thought that I was ready to go do my practicum in the downtown east side. And I've never been exposed to mental health or drug addiction. I never knew. I had a very sheltered life. I never even driven on the on probably Hastings Street past Main Street or something like that. I had never gone there. So then I was doing my tours in the community, like when I finished my education, and one of the persons that I met was like who'd been in the field for over 35 years and said, you're not going to survive in downtown East Side. And here I'm thinking, oh my God, that was the only thing that stuck with me. So what I did, I went to Value Village, bought all these clothes and all those stuff to wear there. When I went to my practicum, the first day I got off the bus and I'm thinking, oh my God, I look more homeless than the people I come here to serve.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I doing? But I was so afraid because of not being aware, not having the skills and the knowledge and not being aware. You always feel like somebody's out to get you, but but I had to change my approach. 3 days later I had to wear normal clothes to work. But that's what it happened to me.
And the biggest thing is that you acknowledge the fact that you didn't have the knowledge and experience, right? But I've worked with individuals on the downtown east side, and honestly, they're most inspiring individuals I have ever worked with. The resiliency, their stories is absolutely touching. And I think one thing that this field really taught me was gratitude for what we have as individuals, right? And seeing the suffering that is in the world and what individuals go through on a daily basis. This job makes me grateful. And especially during COVID, like that definitely made me kill, and it wasn't easy on anybody, and especially on healthcare. So
no, and I agree with you. I think my practicum of 8 weeks taught me more than what I learned in school. To be honest,
it's true.
It transformed me. How I thought, my own thinking, my own perceptions. It really changed me as a human being.
Yeah.
And I admire the talent and skills, and no matter what people are going through, but they never forget. What they're made up of. And I think that's what, if you can approach from a strength base and curiosity and support and all those, you see all these strengths in people no matter what they're going through.
And I think the biggest thing like school taught me was going through a trauma-informed lens and seeing that like every individual you have in your life has seen some sort of trauma and seeing it through that lens. And we are the way we are is because of our experiences, our upbringing. There's so many different factors, and seeing it through a trauma-informed lens and acknowledging that every individual, regardless of their walk of life, has seen a form of trauma. And so I think that's a huge part of humanity, is to see each other through the lens of acceptance, right, and non-judgment. And I think that's what our world lacks, and I think that's what we need, especially in the South Asian community when it comes to mental health.
I feel like again, I think that I'm feeling a lot these days.
Yeah, we all are.
I think the thing is, there's lack of awareness about mental health, and we people are very judgy. But I also feel, then also, we all have to take responsibility. We don't need to have a fake facade out there and say, I'm just doing well.
Yeah.
You know what? We need to let our guard down. We need to be able to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we cannot expect to be supported if we can't be vulnerable. So I think it's important that we be vulnerable so that the people out there can be less judgmental and be supportive. So I think there's both, that's on both sides. Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing we learn in nursing is self-care.
Yeah.
How do you expect to be taking care of other individuals if you're not taking care of yourself? So I think for me the biggest growth that has ever happened is when I'm vulnerable to myself, and the greatest self-reflection happens in that time. And so we do, for the individuals we trust, allow them to see what we are going through. And that's scary though. It is very scary, right? There's disappointment, there's hardship in that, but I think
and the fear of unknown. If you are vulnerable, if you express your vulnerability, especially when your work environment, for example, if you're in a work environment and in a hospital setting or something, as a nurse experiencing some vulnerabilities, how do you express this to your seniors? How is that going to be viewed? The fear of, it's going to be used to punish me.
Exactly. Exactly. There's so many different factors, right? Yeah. So, but just finding those individuals that you trust and allow yourself to be vulnerable with them, and I think that's huge. Yeah, that will be huge.
Yeah. And I think so, like you said, those mentors, when we go through nursing, we're learning a new nurse. Yes, there's individuals that might not be so helpful, but there's also individuals that are helpful.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the actual, when you were studying, doing practicums, learning a lot of things. I know for me, I was so bad at math, and you had to calculate, and on math you had to get 100%.
Yeah.
I had to get a tutor because I was so bad at math just to pass those, and having that stress, how you dealt with that, also being exposed to these new things, going through the whole program, how was that?
Honestly, it was hard. Anyone who's gone through any sort of degree, but especially nursing, literal blood, sweat, and tears have gone into that. More tears. I think I've had a lot of breakdowns. I'm comfortable enough to admit that yes, there was nights where I just wanted to rip my hair out, and I'm done with this.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, and I'm not going to say I was perfect when it comes to taking care of myself in nursing school. But for me, I think again it came down to that mentorship and that time management, and leaning on those mentors, I think was a huge thing for me. And those long nights of studying and the hard work. And I think anyone who wants to go into nursing, just be prepared of what you're signing up for. It's not easy, but it's doable. And I think the biggest thing is take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, and really manage your time well. There's going to be times where you do have to sacrifice certain things in your life, social time especially. I think me being a very social person, that was the hardest thing. For those of you who know me in my personal life, know I'm a very social person.
Yeah.
So that was the sacrifices that I had to make. But time management, organization, and then being vocal about what you need. You're not in this alone. You're not the only person that's probably feeling the way you are. So lean on somebody and speak out to your educators, your mentors. And I think that was the biggest thing. What my biggest learning curve is. So anyone who's going into school, regardless of the field they choose, manage your time well and lean on your instructors and your mentors, and it's doable. You'll be fine.
Anything is doable.
Yes.
Another thing I want to touch on also is, especially I think in our South Asian culture, when we talk about mental health, or we talk about some of the diagnoses like schizophrenia, where you're hearing voices or you're seeing things, hallucinating, where that could be perceived as echputage.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that and the education or overcoming those kind of barriers?
I think again it's allowing that individual to express what their understanding is. So allowing them to express that, okay, so tell me, what do you mean by what is your perception of it? And I think again, just coming from an area of humility and showing, not judging that person right away, because that's not where the growth happens. So allowing them to express what they are expressing, and then challenging them in a way that's based in evidence, and showing them that this is actually not a spirit or a booth or whatever it may be, but this is an actual, biological abnormality that this individual is facing, and using that science to show them that this is what the effects of it are. So I think coming from a place of compassion is, I think, not only just for my patients, but for the individuals I actually work with. And when I teach as well with my students, I actually ask them to bring all their preconceived notions, their stereotypes to me. That's my role as their instructor, is to remove those. And I said, I will not judge you based on what your thoughts are. So tell me exactly, be candid with me, what are your thoughts? You know, what are your preconceived notions about mental health, and I'm not going to judge you. And then so I challenge them in a way that they're able to see the other side of that conversation. And I gotta be, very candid, it may not work the entire time, but I do the best that I can within my scope and within my ability to do the best and educate them.
Yeah, I mean, like even for myself, like I think back when I was younger, if somebody wasn't right or they're not acting or they kuch ਉਹਨੂੰ ਹੋਇਆ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਚੁੰਬੜ ਗਿਆ, I never knew about this mental health, like even growing up, that it could be this. But then as you learn, you grow, you learn so much. And not only like the individual, the families too. And I worked with developmental disabilities, mental health services where, they have clients where either they're diagnosed like with Down.
Buying or selling a house is a difficult process. Get Prem Prakash from Sabha Realty Limited to find you your dream home, whether it's your first house, upgrading, or investment property. Always at your service with a fast, friendly, and honest opinion, Prem Prakash will guide you through the entire process. Get in touch with him today for a free, no-obligation consultation at 778-840-5866. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages.
For astrology service, life horoscope, and fortune telling, marriage problem, love problem, divorce problem, money problem, personal or business, all types of puja and havan. Call Pandit Lakshminath Guruji